All right. Welcome to the second installment of the Frontier Introduction series, featuring the computational, community engagement, and neutrino physics frontiers. This series is brought to you by the Snowmass Early Career Inreach initiative, led by Cindy Lin and Christian Herwig. My name is Tiffany Lewis, and I will be moderating today's discussion. We'd also like to thank Joshua Barrow for hosting our Zoom connection. Today we are going to begin with the community engagement frontier represented by Mateus Carneiro. Mateus is a SEC liaison to the community engagement frontier as well as the diversity key initiative. He's currently a postdoc at Brookhaven National Lab, having received his PhD from Centro Brasileiro de Pesquisas Físicas in 2016, Dr. Carneiro, for the community engagement frontier.
Hi everyone, let me try to share this. Can you all hear me and see my slides?
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool, great, okay, let me, I'll turn on my video because it's a lot of text, so if you want to stare at my face, maybe that helps. So, hi everyone. I'm here to try to introduce to everyone the community engagement frontier. I am not one of the frontier conveners. I'm actually together with Scott Kravitz. We're both the part of the leadership groups and the points of contact in the Snowmass early career group that attached to this frontier. And Katevi and Breeze are the actual conveners, and thank you very much for the help. Not just them, but the conveners of all the topical groups that took a look here. So let me jump right in. I think something that I really want to convey, and I may say that several times, is that this is a frontier for everyone. No matter what the physics you do, there's a frontier to build community and shape the culture we want and need for the future. Not just in the sense of the things you care and you like, but I think there is a sense of responsibility that this frontier wants to address and understand how our field deal with our accessibility, so ensure accessibility, foster a healthy relationship with other fields, industries, and communities, enable society to benefit from innovations that this field come up with, and learn from the communities that we are embedded in. And not just the responsibility of making all of this, I would add that once we do all of that, we also make our own community in this field stronger. And of course, there's no point of talking about it or thinking of all of these changes in the context of time that Snowmass look at if we don't have input and engagement of early career community. So that's really important in this frontier to understand what this community wants, what are the things that we maybe not be doing perfectly, and there's definitely a lot of them, and this is the moment to address them and shape the future that we're gonna see in the field. Okay, so let me go somewhat slowly through each one of the topical groups. One thing that you're gonna see is that there is definitely overlap in between the topical groups, which is a good thing. That none of them exist in a bubble. Most of them, the name in itself is enough, but I will try to describe slightly what each one of the groups are aiming for right now. So the first one, application and industry, the objective is to develop strategic planning and engagement that promotes application technology transfer of knowledge gained in particle physics research. So it's a group that aiming to work closely with industry and application, understand what we've been doing in this and what we can do better. There's also efforts into develop and improve mechanism to disseminate the impacts. And again, like this is already something that you can see that touches into outreach and public education. So just to show that these groups overlap in a way. The second group, a career pipeline and development. The objective is to identify and encourage options to promote the skill development of physics graduates and young researchers, create careers and employment opportunities inside and outside of academia, and encourage career direction-based scientific majors and skills. So this group, it's focused on understanding how we deal with career, how we develop careers inside our field, and now looking just into academia opportunities, but also outside of academia opportunities, working together with external fields. The third group is diversity and inclusion, and well, it specifically focuses on issues and projects related to diversity, inclusion, and equity. This is something that we're sure that's something very important for us to understand how the community deals with it now and identify problems and try to come up with solutions. This has been a fairly active group already, given the the situations that we've been having. This group already organized some very good town halls, so I invite you to engage with them if you haven't seen any of it yet. The aim of the group is to gather information in several different levels, and ultimately produce recommendations and resources to promote diversity and encourage inclusion and equity at all levels. This is a group that aims to change things that are basically cultural. So it's something that's really important for early career to be engaged and talk about the things that you are concerned and talk about the things that should be done. Um, just a point here, and I hope I don't lose you with organization things, but I'm here talking again. I am the liaison of one of the early career groups that talks with those whole frontier, but this diversity, inclusion, and equity is something that we deem so important, especially for early career, that there is a whole group that is specifically related to it. Again, there is a lot of overlap in things, so if you feel lost, choose one of these groups and reach out to us, and we can organize. Uh, but this group exists, and one of the ideas of this group is to exist past the Snowmass process, for us to have a sense of community and make sure that we always defending these principles of diversity, inclusion, and equity. Next group, physics education. So physics education, it's about looking into efforts in physics education to train, improve, and sustain the people working in our field in the widest sense. The objective is to identify where improvements are needed and to develop new opportunities at all educational levels. And this really includes from K-12 through postdoctoral, faculty, and professional ranks. And also not just specifically physics. This is supposed to look and understand how we do this education and how we are feeding especially the future members of this community with all of the tools that they need to be good professionals and to keep working well with us. So this is not just specifically about physics, but it's also looking to developments in particle physics education, mathematics, computer science, and other different types of technical training. We have a group specifically about public education and outreach. This is probably the easiest one to understand. It is related to all different programs of outreach. The main goal, I think, has been to understand how we do things and why we do things, and to try to develop and improve and make sure that this communication it's effective, and if we are reaching everyone in the right way that we should do. So this, it's also a group that kind of talks with all of the other ones, because a lot of this here, it's about communicating, maybe internally or externally, but this is a group that deals a lot with that. And the last group is public policy and government engagement. Is the group that focuses into understanding and looking to our presence and engagement with government and policymakers. It is about training. It is about how we do things. It's there's a goal to erase stereotypes and improve public perception, and this is something that touches into policy making, and it also feeds back into the whole community. This a lot of what is brought up. This is somewhat based in the DC trip that happens every year, but it doesn't stop there. It is a broader idea to try to understand how we as a field communicate with government in different ways. Okay, so these were the topical groups, which are the organization of the main frontier. Let me talk for a second about the organization that we have in the Snowmass early career. So we have this group that is supposed to be a bridge between the early career community and the main frontier initiatives. So the idea is that, well, I just listed several different topical groups, and you're probably interested in some of them. You also have your frontier, and you also have several different meetings to go. So we just want to make that communication easier. Okay, we're currently a very small group. We try to have representation in each one of the topical groups I listed. It has not been fully possible. So there is a lot of places to jump in if you want to be part of this more organizational side of the early career community. Our main goal right now is to understand themes and concerns of the community while trying to help any level of organization. Right? Again, keep in mind that this is a frontier that englobes the whole community. So sometimes it's not hard to come across things where you have someone in the energy frontier and someone that works with astrophysics and a neutrino theorists, that they all have specific concerns that are community related. So it's not easy for them to come together just because we are all far apart in many different ways. So we as a group try to bring people together so we can make this collaboration happen. If you are interested, you can look at our meeting notes and agendas where we have our discussions try to be accessible in some way. But actually, if you are interested, there are some other ways to engage with this early career group. You can join our Slack channel. It's fairly active. We have meetings every week. But again, most of the meetings, we just have discussions that add up. They keep going on Slack. So the Slack is a really good place to be, just to understand what is going on and to input your to give your opinion and anywhere you can. It's an open group, and if you don't have Slack, this is a link, and I can send you instructions to join if you don't know how to. You can also specifically join us to be a liaison of one of the topical groups. So this group can come to the conveners meeting, so we can be involved in a more fundamental level of organization. So if that's something that you're interested in, please reach out to us. Again, you can do all or just one of any of the strings above. You don't need to be a liaison to be part of the meeting. And if you want to just join Slack and bring up a discussion that you're interested on, please feel free to. We are facilitators. Our goal is to be an open group with a very easy access. So yeah, this is just a whole list of ways to participate in the main frontier level. So it's a list of all the listservs that if you want to be engaged and be aware of everything that's going on, not just the listservs, but all of the Slack channels. There is a Google Calendar with all of the meetings, if that helps you be organized and understand what's going on. So these are just ways to go, and all of these are links. So I believe this PDF is already on the agenda, so you can just click on here and be sent to the right groups. Okay, so another way to participate, and something that I've been focusing a lot right now, it's submitting an LOI. LOIs are letters of interest, and what are they? They are informal documents intended to serve as input to the Snowmass process. They do not attach you to any responsibility later in the process. If you want to bring up any problem, if you want to suggest any project, we don't expect you to come months later and write a full-on description and solution to the problem. This is literally about bringing up subjects with the main process of Snowmass. There's a maximum of 2 pages, so even if you can solve the problem you're bringing up, you only have 2 pages to do it. And the deadline is in the end of the month. So if there's anything that you want to make sure that it is being discussed in the main process, the deadline's coming. We as a group can help you with anything. We can proofread it. We can be a sounding board for you to bounce ideas off, advertise the idea to other people and try to find some collaborators, anything you need. One way that we tried to make this happen was that we set up a spreadsheet to help people get together and share ideas. Actually, the main idea here is to lower the bar even below an LOI. In the spreadsheet, you can just click here and we have just a tab for each of the topical groups. And you can just throw on your idea there. You can or not add your contact for us to reach out to you later, or you can just put your rant there in any way you want. We just want to really hear from the community. What do we care about? What should we be talking about? And also at the same time, it's something interesting. You can go there and see there are other people talking about something that you may be interested in, finding people to collaborate with, or even just bounce ideas out. If you need some incentive, these are LOIs that are being developed by early career colleagues. And these are just the ones that we are aware, and I'm not even sure if this list is complete with all the ones that we are aware, but you can just skim through this and see that they are all over the place. Most of them actually don't address just one of the topics. They're probably gonna address more than one, and that's not a bad thing. That's completely fine. You can click on some of them here and just read what they are really about and get in touch with people. If you think that anything is missing, this is the moment and the way to let us know that we are missing something that you care. And the best way to do it is to go into the spreadsheet and edit it there. And just to give an example in general, or how an LOI looks like. So this is just one specific, and I'm not sure if Sam is spearheading here, and I'm using this as the big example here. There's a project or a suggestion of projects to make sure that universities and labs systematically donate their old computing resources. Again, this is a suggestion, it's an idea. It doesn't necessarily need to solve the problem. Again, 2 pages, several links, so you can convey your idea based on different examples and so show what you mean. You don't really have to do the hard work of proving that things will work. You can just convey your idea with links. This one specific express intention of future work, not necessary. And you can see a collaborative set of authors and supporters. People can sign with you as collaborators because they help you written. People can sign just as supporters, and this is something that we've been trying to do, and especially if you come to us with your ideas, we can make sure that this is something that is backed by a part of the community, just giving it more visibility to the whole work. Okay, so I hope I made you excited to engage. The Community Engagement Frontier englobes so many different interests and approaches. There's probably something you care about, and it's likely there's an easy way to bring that to the Snowmass process, no matter how much time you have to get on it. Feel free to reach out in any of the ways listed, and thank you for your time. I'll take any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Matthias.
Should I keep sharing, or do you want to show something else during Q&A?
I think it's okay in case anybody has any questions on your slides.
Sure.
Does anyone have any questions? You can use the raise hand feature in the Zoom application.
I can't raise my hand, but I was wondering, with respect to the LOIs, I mean, is there any particular, when we say community engagement, are there any particular limits to what that can mean? Is there actually going to be something that, for instance, we would focus on outreach outside of the community, or are these more targeted toward advocating different ideas just within DPF effectively?
I think, yeah, actually both, right? Like as I mentioned, like you have the specific topical group that it is about outreach and communicating outside, and the way we do it, and but if you have a specific outreach project, and that on itself, it's a good LOI to write. So I don't think there are any hard limits in here.
So if we have our own kind of ideas of you know, coursework for high schoolers or undergraduates or something like that, we can talk about that in a separate LOI.
Sure, and there are even some already a couple of things here, maybe even touch on what you're talking about already.
Yeah, and I mean, in terms of, this is Bryce, I'll be talking later on, but in terms of, I mean, that sounds like an awesome idea. One thing that helps is, you know, instead of, you know, figuring out on your own or in a small group, you know, reaching out to a larger number of people that you think might be interested, I think is good, because I think it you know, you want to get as many people involved in this as possible if you want to be a successful, high profile effort. And the more hands on deck you can get, the better. So I think it's a great idea. I mean, it sounds like a great idea. And the way to really tell if it's a good idea is if you reach out to more people and they're interested too.
And just to add, like, also, if you have your own idea and you want to just write that by yourself and still have us proofreading and etc., it's also completely fine. It is definitely better if there is an LOI that have clearly a lot of part of the community backing it up. But if something you want to do by yourself, it kind of goes against the community engagement idea. But still, I understand that writing something with people that you don't know may not be the most comfortable situation, so that's
True.
also fine.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great topic. Sudhir?
Hi, everyone. It's nice to see this presentation. I just wanted to say a couple of things. One is that, you know, community engagement and Snowmass Young, these are new concepts for Snowmass. They didn't exist before. However, the thing is that Snowmass early and Snowmass Young, sorry, and the community engagement, they have a lot in common because we can think of anything that pushes us forward, and so does Snowmass Young. So I think these two groups are very unique, whereas the others just focus on the science aspect. We focus on community which can only be propelled by the science that we do. So I think both groups have to have we should have a lot of overlap, and we should have common, you know, LOIs without worrying that whose LOI is it. So I would request this group also to look at the LOIs that each of the community engagement frontier has, and maybe you will find a strong overlap to continue. Please remember that we do not have enough people to cover all LOIs. So there is a lot of scope to contribute. And as Matthias was saying, we have to act like a community, right? Of course, you can bring your individual ideas, but please have a look, because we have ideas, but we need people to write about them and of course implement them. And one message I want you also to convey to other engagement frontiers is that if we are proposing physics education change, we are proposing some career thing, whatever we are proposing, or training, it can't work without the engagement of other frontiers, right? If suppose I propose software training, it's not going to work if the computing frontier is not interested. So we are all well knit in terms of our goals. So I would really request that you look at the LOIs, and it's nice to see this list here that's being projected, and work together. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, and even there was something that I could even add to this presentation, a link to some lists that have the LOIs of the full frontier. Right, like I specifically highlighting here things that are from the early career, but as was just mentioned, it is also something you can just also engage in things that are not created by early career, and that's also completely fine and suggested. Please do.
Awesome. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? All right. Not seeing any hands. We are going to go ahead and move on to Bryce. We're changing up the order of the speakers a little bit because we're still missing Steve. So you should be able to share your screen.
Yeah, hold up. I gotta grab my slides first. Give me just one moment here.
No worries, I'll read your introduction in the interim.
Okay.
So up next we have the Neutrino Physics Frontier represented by Bryce Littlejohn. Bryce is an assistant professor at the Illinois Institute of Technology. He works with the Daya Bay Microboon Prospect and SBND experiments, having received his PhD from the University of Wisconsin-Madison in 2012. Dr. Littlejohn for the Neutrino Physics Frontier.
All right. Hey, everybody. So I'm going to provide a little intro to the Neutrino Frontier, but also since I was a member of the 2013 SEC kind of group that was put together for the last Snowmass, I figured I'd just share some thoughts from that as well. So first off, I'm just going to crib some stuff directly from Marcella's slides last week because I thought it was a really good overview. But I think the words in red here, if you were here last week, I'm sorry to repeat, but just to re-emphasize the fact that Snowmass is a community planning exercise. So all the red phrases here, it's community driven. That is a very important aspect. It's not just you coming up with ideas, it is you engaging with other people about those ideas. The vision is a 20-year global vision. So we're talking about stuff today, and we're talking about stuff 5 years from now and 10 and 20 years from now. So it's good to have that broad scope. And then in terms of engaging with Snowmass, if you want to be active in the field in the future, if you want to work on exciting new projects or theories or experiments or ideas, if you want to build strong networks, if you answer yes to any of these, then it makes sense to try and participate, whether as a part of SEC or as a part of any of the other frontiers. And by engaging, like Marcella says here, you have a chance to help shape the future of the field. That is the goal here. And obviously, young people, SECers should care about that just as much as, experienced PIs. So building on what Marcella said, how many of you are currently like shopping? This is a take on this, I think, is a little bit different than Marcella. Let's just see where it goes. So in terms of engaging with Snowmass, I mean, how many of you really like shopping for a frontier or topical group or not, right? If this were live, unfortunately, we could get a show of hands, but maybe since we're on Zoom, I can't really do that. I'm gonna guess that most of you would probably say that no, you are not currently shopping for a frontier or a topical group, a scientific frontier or topical group to pay attention to. Maybe I'm wrong, and someone can correct me in the Q&A afterwards. Maybe we can get some perspectives afterwards. But if you're not shopping, why are you not shopping around? And I think for a lot of folks, a common answer you might have, this was certainly the case for me in 2013, I wasn't shopping around for a frontier because I knew that I was working on, what my boss or my PhD advisor was working on. And, I was at that point years deep in a couple of different experiments. So it made sense for me to engage with that frontier or topical group. Now, so maybe not everybody is in this boat, but certainly I think a lot of you probably are. And if that is you, this should tell you something about your Snowmass engagement avenues in terms of the physics frontiers. The best way to engage is with the people who are helping to define what working group you're in. So engage your advisor and ask them, what is our group doing for Snowmass? Our research is interesting. We're doing important stuff on these experiments. What are we doing for Snowmass to make sure we can keep doing this stuff, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Engage your collaborations. What are we doing for Snowmass? How are we going to engage in this community planning exercise collaboration? if your institution leads specific analysis or R&D efforts, you may be the right person to help lead incorporation of that effort into a LOI or a white paper for your experiment or your interest group or your institution or whatever. My guess is that in terms of the physics frontiers, this is how most SEC members might engage with the physics of Snowmass, right? And even if you're not the one writing an LOI, writing a white paper, you might be making plots for them. You might be proofreading them and trying to add in some pieces that you think might be missing from the storyline or from the physics case. Or alternatively, maybe you've got some great idea for an extension of your experiment or your analysis or overlap with some new effort. Now is the time to raise this with your advisor or experiment. This may not be the most common form of engagement that you guys might go, but think about it. Think about if there's anything that you've been turning around in your head for the future of your experiment or your field that you just feel like you want to talk to somebody about, because maybe they're interested too. This is the ways that you engage with Snowmass physics frontiers. And if your needs are not met via these avenues, so if you, let's say you've got some good ideas, but you just don't feel like you're getting very good communication with your advisor or your experiment, you feel like people aren't listening or you don't feel comfortable, whatever, your SEC group topical group liaisons may be another useful resource for you to talk to somebody in your field who understands, who would, you know, want to work with you on some ideas or direct you towards someone who might be interested. So yeah, so that's my thoughts about integrating in the physics topical groups, is really trying to take these avenues you've already got connections on, your collaborations, your experiments, your coworkers, and try to engage them about this. So that's the scientific participation. This is also a community planning exercise. So by definition, there's more than just scientific participation, right? It's a networking exercise. It's a political exercise. It's an educational exercise. So, and in these other kinds of senses, SEC is important for these other aspects of Snowmass participation. I think, from my experience, you know, in addition to engaging with the science, you know, you should be thinking about this Snowmass participation as an opportunity to learn about your field. Where's it at? Where's it been? Where's it going? Integrating your field into the big picture of everything that's going on and being funded today by DOE and NSF and so on and so forth. Meet your colleagues. It's possible that you could be working with a lot of these people for a long time. So it's a good time to engage with people, whether they're in your collaboration or outside your collaboration or outside your frontier. Learn how to sell. Everyone during the Snowmass process is trying and working hard to realize their own ideas and interests. So what is it that makes your idea, your experiment unique or essential for science? And how do you convey that in an accessible way? And of course, here, I think arguments beyond the purely scientific ones are perfectly valid. What are the other educational considerations, political considerations, budgetary considerations that make your idea unique or essential? And also making the field what you want it to be. The HEP field scientific vitality and work environment is defined by more than just what experiments we decide to build. And that's a part of planning for the future too. Now, interacting with SEC is a way to get these other pieces like this Inreach, you know, that's helping with this first bullet here, how to learn about your fields, how to meet colleagues. I think interaction with your experiment and advisor can also help you with these things as well as the scientific participation. Okay, so that's my spiel about just my thoughts as a previous SEC person and about engaging in Snowmass in the past. So why don't I just continue on, and then at the end we can ask questions about both my frontier and about these other thoughts that I had about engaging with Snowmass. Okay, so to try to get, how much time do I have left? 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
I think 5 minutes.
Perfect. Okay, sure. So if you're looking at neutrino physics in one slide, what we want to know in the neutrino frontiers, we want to know about fundamental neutrino properties. What is their mass? How do they oscillate? How do they interact? And how do they connect to portals to new physics that isn't neutrino physics, but is just particle physics more generally, BSM physics. And of course, also understanding the things that make neutrinos and the things that neutrinos interact with, you know, nuclei, for example. We can learn about those things as well. So the plot up here is really different baselines and energies that we make measurements at that determines how the neutrinos that we're observing oscillate. Here's just, you know, our known masses of mass splittings of the different neutrinos. You know, there's 3 neutrinos. We know what some of their masses are in some senses, but not in others. There may be extra neutrinos, who knows? And then here's all the various sources that we try to use to learn about those sources, but also to learn about all the physics in here. So, oh golly. Yeah, why care about neutrinos specifically? I guess the big question, one big question in all of HEP is like, where's all the new physics? We don't have a clear explanation for many fundamental concepts in the standard model. For example, the realized hierarchy of quark and lepton masses. Why do they weigh what they weigh? Why are they going from light to heavy over that particular 6 orders of magnitude or whatever? We don't know the answer to that, but some other fundamental symmetry might explain this, which indicates that there's some more physics out there that needs to be measured. You know, and where's the best path to find this physics, which we think should be out there? Is it the energy frontier? Is it via neutrinos or neutrino mass, like oscillation studies or neutrinoless double beta decay? Is it in hidden portals that are visible in high intensity neutrino beam lines? So the 2 I have in green here are like clear goals of the neutrino frontier that fit into the bigger picture I'm kind of drawing out for you here. And then, as I said before, neutrinos are a probe of how other things work, how the universe works. You know, why is it made of matter? That's leptonic CP violation. That's Dune. Nuclear physics. How is the nucleus arranged? This is neutrino interaction studies. How does the sun work? How do supernovae work? That is supernova and solar neutrino detection, which goes in a bunch of different frontiers. And I could go on for much longer. You can learn about lots of different things by studying their neutrinos. Okay, so to go through the different frontiers, NFO1 and NFO2 are really focused on this diagram here that I drew before, that I had on a previous slide. It's looking at the standard model neutrinos, how they oscillate, and they tend to oscillate along these combinations of baselines and energies. And NFO2 is looking at different combinations of baselines and energies that would correspond to a different neutrino mass. So these oscillations correspond to the mass differences of these guys. These oscillations here might be from some other combination of mass splittings from an additional neutrino. So these frontiers are really looking at this oscillation physics mostly. And NFO3 is looking for BSM physics at neutrino experiments. So it could be neutrino related, or it could be some other crazy light relic particle that we can see because we have a nice high energy meson decay and flight beam, or because we have a huge detector that can see very low fluxes of particles. So you can, you know, things you'd imagine doing in an NFO3 is like using a neutrino detector to look for millicharge particles from a beamline, or looking for boosted dark matter from the sun, coming from the sun to the earth and interacting in your neutrino detector. That's what NFO3 is doing. Okay, NFO4 and 7 and 9 and 10, these are the frontiers for natural sources of neutrinos, artificial sources of neutrinos, neutrino applications, and neutrino detectors. As I said before, there's so much to learn about the sources of neutrinos, and that's really NFO4 and NFO9. We can build better sources and better detectors, right? For the beam side, we can tune our beams and better monitor our beams and make them more intense. That's what NFO9 is about. That'll give us better physics in NFO1 and NFO2, right? Better detectors, lower thresholds, better granularity, cheaper, yada, yada, yada. That's NFO10. That clearly helps us do good neutrino physics too. We can also better understand our sources and detectors. A nuclear reactor, we don't decide, we don't tune it, the neutrinos that come out of it. We can understand them better by studying that source. And then finally, NFO7, it's really learning about, it's not necessarily learning about the source, It's about taking what you know about the source and doing some applied thing with it. So muon tomography, or safeguards and monitoring of nuclear reactors using neutrinos, and workforce development, right? Training the next generation of neutrino physicists and nuclear physicists. Okay, and yeah, this is my last slide. NF05 and 06 and 08, we're really talking about neutrino properties, aside from their oscillation. Neutrino properties is, are they Dirac or Majorana? What's their absolute mass? What are their electromagnetic properties? Are they stable particles? Do they decay? These are the kinds of basic fundamental properties that aren't necessarily oscillation related, but also are super important. That's NF05. NF06, is how do they interact? What are their cross sections? In many ways, they're very well predicted and are a good probe for standard model deviations. But in some ways, the interactions are very horribly predicted. And we can learn more about nuclei by better probing those cross sections. And then NF08 is the theory of neutrino physics. This actually got moved to the theory frontier, but you can imagine the theory of neutrino physics is going to relate to all of these different topical groups. Oh, by the way, I have a bunch of links in this presentation. All of the underlined things are links. So it should enable you to better look. The best place to look to learn more about that frontier is by clicking the links in here. And you can see I've also got links in this to your SEC topical group liaisons, which I think might be helpful. But yeah, take a look at these slides. That's why I made them available, and click through the links and you can learn more as well. But yeah, I think that's all I really have to say. But I guess to conclude, consider neutrino-specific involvement. Now, there's a zillion ways, as I gave you ideas for getting involved. One other way you can get involved is that there's a zillion workshops, and they're all on this calendar here. Please do not go to all of them. That's not a good use of your time. Curation is key. Full disclosure, I have been to exactly 0 of these workshops so far, so don't feel bad if you don't go. I don't feel bad. And if you aren't sure where to start as to which ones you should go to, talk to your advisor, talk to your collaboration mentors, talk to the SEC Frontier Liaison, and figure out what makes sense. And then, as I said, participate in the LOI and white paper writing. And there's many different ways to do this. Oh, and one more point here. If there isn't a way in which you can directly get involved in LOI and paper writing, don't be sad. Like, you may have actually lucked out by doing that, by being in that situation, because maybe you can actually just go get down to business and on your existing R&D and analysis efforts. That's good too. But if you're in that situation and you still want to get involved, keep abreast of what's going on in your collaboration and engage with SEC in other ways, like, helping out with the survey, helping out with Inreach, and so on and so forth. So that's it. Sorry if I went a little over.
No worries. Thanks so much, Bryce. Does anybody have any questions? Rob?
Hi, that was a very useful talk. I appreciated hearing your perspective. There was an aspect that I expected to be covered that wasn't, sure. And maybe that wasn't what you were asked to speak about, but it's still unclear to me what the early career group that's attached to the Neutrino Frontier is actually doing, like what their organizational structure is and what steps they're taking to, I don't even know if their goal is to increase participation from early career members in the efforts or what. And maybe you can't comment, but.
So we have these liaisons, and we haven't had too many, let me think about a way to describe this. So, one way that I see the liaisons really being helpful is if you are having trouble engaging with your advisor or with your collaboration with the frontier aspect, or if you're a new graduate student who doesn't necessarily, have a very hard connection to a particular experiment or something like that, that's where I really see these liaisons as being helpful to help point, SEC members who are just getting their feet wet in the right direction, directing them to the, the right conveners or spokespeople to help them get their questions answered. That's one role that I can see the liaisons playing. I think that is, I mean, that's one of the primary ways I'd thought about it. I would be interested in hearing your guys' impressions of what roles the liaisons can serve. I mean, one thing that would be nice is we have these topical group conveners. You know, one thing that I suppose would be nice is getting some input from the liaisons, providing input from the SECers, you know, writ large about, you know, preferences, ideas, thoughts. Although, yeah, it's hard for me to envision right now what form that would come in, but it's a channel that's open to allow that exchange of communication. I mean, what do you guys think?
So I'll just say quickly, the one role that I think the early career group can uniquely serve would be to proactively increase participation, not from people who already know about Snowmass and are looking for how to become involved, but for people who maybe have heard of Snowmass but aren't paying attention because they think they're too busy or whatever, or just have no idea what's going on and aren't getting as far as listening to this talk or going to other early career talks and asking themselves, oh, this looks great, how can I become involved? It's all the people who are out there toiling away who don't think it's important to become involved or don't know about it.
Yeah, and I mean, in that sense, you could imagine one thing a liaison would try to do is to engage, you know, think about the experiments that are in your topical, in your frontier, and try to identify points of contact, you know, SEC points of contact in every collaboration to say, hey, you know, this is going on, and now I know I've got someone in each collaboration who's gonna, you know, be you know, slacking with their experiment, you know, kind of raising people's consciousness about the fact that this is happening and that they should care. That could be something that would be very useful for an SEC liaison to do for each frontier.
I completely agree with that. Thanks.
Yep.
That sounds great. Does anybody else have any comments or questions? All right. Seeing none and still not seeing Steve, I guess we've come to the end of our discussion for today. Did anybody have any final comments?
Tiffany, may I say something? This is Sudhir.
Sure.
Sure. So, you know, thanks for the energetic talk. That was fantastic. You know, if one wants to look into Neutrino, I think this talk would be a good reference. So thanks for the nice talk. One thing I wanted to say was that, you know, I come from, I work on D0 experiment, and now I've been working on CMS for last 2 decades. And I've been associated with Fermilab, you know, for almost all my career. The thing that I've noticed is that there's a big disconnect, as I feel, between Neutrino community and the LHC community. Of course, the scientific ultimate goals are similar, BSM physics, but I think there's a lot Neutrino community can learn from LHC. Besides the scientific specific things, there's a lot to learn about how they have achieved community engagement, you know, in terms of whether it's software training or whether it is, you know, career events. There's a lot to learn, and I don't notice that at all in Fermilab community. And I've been trying to engage, you know, Neutrino community into our career things. And so I'm looking forward to the Snowmass early career people helping with that. So it would be nice to also see what is LHC community doing. They are, of course, they are thriving experiments, and they are a lot of community things. For example, a good example is networking. You know, many of you are trying to find jobs or, you know, whatever. They have such a solid networking done by CERN itself, and we should try to follow that example here also. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thanks, Sudhir. That's really interesting.
Yeah, thanks for those comments. Does anybody else have any final comments or questions?
Not to disagree with Bryce, because I think that everyone should prioritize their own work, especially their analysis work. However, if you are in a more senior position as far as graduate school or looking for a new postdoctoral position, I think it's very, very instructive to look at what's on the horizon as far as experiments are concerned, many of which are really looking for early career people to become involved, to push those developments forward, and to attend some of these kickoff meetings across many of the different frontiers is really instructive as to what those opportunities are going forward. So I would encourage people to, yes, do go to some of the kickoff meetings, because you can actually see the way that the field is being planned out in a way that's much more constructive.
Yeah, and I mean, also, don't feel like if you're like, oh, I'm not writing any LOIs right now, and I tried to get engaged, but nothing ended up working out, whatever. That's not like, you should still go to the kickoff meetings. You should still go to all that stuff. And once again, I think your advisor can help you work through what are the things that would be very interesting and that you're likely to get something out of.
So, Bryce, just to wrap up what you just said, I think the message to convey is, you may not participate for whatever reason, but you will get impacted. So it's better you pay attention.
Yeah.
Prasant?
Yeah, something I wanted to note was, what was I going to say? Yeah, as important as Snowmass is, this idea of keeping an eye out for the future and thinking about what's going to happen in the next 5, 10, 15 years, I think that is something we do all the time. It's not something we do once in 10 years, right? Like, you do have papers talking about the future, you do have decisions and workshops and such. And in that sense, the point that Bryce brought up, that the best way to engage is just keep doing whatever it is that you're doing with a little bit more, with a bit more thought on the future maybe than usual. That I guess is, it's a really good point, and it's not something that I've seen stressed much in the conversation about Snowmass. So just mention that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a wholesale redirection of your efforts, right? It's taking that little, thinking about your analysis and thinking about, oh, what comes next, right? Or this is my experiment. Well, what comes next? And is there ways to think a little bit more out of the box about all of these things, or is it a small tweak, or whatever? The point is, there's other people in your collaboration thinking about it too, so you should talk about it with them.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Awesome. Robert?
Yeah, hi. I would just like to add one thing to what Bryce and Josh said. So when you go to these kickoff meetings, don't think about it as a 4-hour investment that blows your day away, right? Because if you're not already in that subject, you're not going to understand anything past the overview talk, right? Because then immediately it gets super technical. But take 20 minutes and go to the overview talk, and then you might hear 1 or 2 things, right? They go, oh, that's kind of interesting. And I would really also encourage people not just to go to your own frontier. You don't need to go to an overview talk for your own frontier. You already know all that, right? Take 20 minutes. If you had an hour a week, right, go to 3 overview talks in frontiers or topical groups that aren't where you're working on. Okay, you might learn something. And that's really what the point of this is I think, for this group. See what's out there. And that, just going to an overview talk is not a big investment.
That's a great point. Thanks for bringing that up. Does anybody else have any comments or questions? All right, in that case, we have come to about the end of the hour. Thank you all so much for joining us and hearing about the frontiers today. Thank you again to our speakers. And I look forward to seeing you all next week.
Thanks for the opportunity to chat. This is fun. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.